Good Sunday morning and welcome to Inside Tennessee along with my colleague John North. I'm John Becker. Good to have you on Inside Tennessee, and we're back this week with Dr. John Rysewyk. He is entering year 5 with Knox County Schools, just past his 4th anniversary in June, and we appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me. Always great to be here.
I'm going to introduce our panel, then we'll get to questions. Susan Richardson Williams is a Republican, runs her own PR firm. Nice to have you back.
Thank you.
Don Bosch runs his own law firm, happens to be a Democrat.
Good morning.
Dr. Rysewyk, let's start with the obvious. The cuts that you had to endure really quickly when it came to your budget. You thought you had one number, but because of the state not giving you as much money, about $4 million, and Knox County Commissioners deciding we're going to dip into the school budget and take some of that money for one-time raises with the county, you had to come up with almost $8 million in cuts. Explain that scenario and how you did it.
Yeah, you know, it was a surprise to us, and I think, you know, our board had worked hard. We'd worked hard on the budget that had passed, and we're making plans for the year. And then, you know, decision made by commission during that time. And I'll say this too. I mean, you know, we know the kind of finances of our county, and there are lots of things they have to make decisions about. We have a sheriff's department, a health department, we have roads, we have infrastructure. So, you know, we understand that, and I think we had actually we've seen over the last 5 years the county pull back dollars, you know, to the tune of, with the last couple pennies they took on the dollar, about $26 million over 5 years that we were getting previously. So, you know, the school system had been doing its part to understand the financial situation of the county, but I think the timing of this one, we didn't know that was going to happen. Again, respect the commissioners and what decisions they have to make, and in the end, we're still going to deliver for our students. So that was a $4 million on June 15th that our team went back that night and started working on how could we do that and try to keep it away from the classroom, try to keep doing the things that are working and are providing good outcomes for our students.
I don't think anybody thought that was an ideal way to make a decision. I think you were there that night in the room. What held you back from going up and saying, excuse me, could I say something?
You know, I mean, we attend all the commission meetings and know the commissioners well. They've been great to us. Every year we get to present our annual plan to them, and you know, there wasn't really that opportunity. Again, great conversations with all 11 of those folks, and you know, they again had a tough decision to make, and that was their decision. So we were there. We always attend and are willing to answer any questions that folks have, but didn't have a chance to do it that night.
Did you know that was going to happen? I'm sorry, John. Did you know that was going to happen until they announced it from?
No, you know, I think the way it kind of played out, like the first motion on the floor was a $13 million cut with a potential, even a capital rollback on our school that we're doing in the Mechanicsville area, and then that was defeated, and then, you know, the vote came on next for a $4 million or a 2 penny move on the dollar back to county to give folks a raise in the county. Again, understand that's important for that to happen too. So at that point, no, we didn't have conversations prior to that.
Were you not aware of the state cut either? I mean, you have a relationship, I assume, with our legislators. I mean, was that a complete surprise? Yeah,
not a complete surprise, but I think that the thing that happened that was different for us is, so we start getting projections from the state late fall, kind of early winter, and so we were monitoring that. The big thing that happened that the state typically, they have the right to do this whenever, but they typically don't do, is they reconfigured what their formula for fiscal capacity, and that's basically what the state deems a local county, the ability they have to generate their own revenue. They did an April recalculation of that, which is later than have typically seen. So I think we were looking at projections and thinking it may be a 2.7 kind of reduction. Final one came back, and the final one comes at the end of June, and it was a $3.8 million. So, you know, for us, it was both of us hitting at the same time and both kind of talking about what the local funding level was, because the state's in essence saying that they think that the local could generate more dollars.
Yeah, I think most of the departments of the state government got cuts too. Y'all were not alone. I think every department had a cut.
We are in the middle of election season, as you know, as much as you like to focus on education, and we are going to have some significant leadership changes. Going to have a new county mayor, going to have some new county commissioners. What sort of conversation have you had with candidates? I know one of them happens to be on your school board, but are you talking to candidates? Do they come to you? Do you say, hey, when it comes to budget time, could you like maybe show a little grace to us, or you know, do you have those kinds of conversations?
Yeah, typically we don't do a whole lot of that till after the primaries because we be meeting with a whole lot of people at that point. So after the primaries, folks reach out and yeah, we usually have those conversations. For us, we produce an annual plan, an annual report that has kind of how we spend our dollars, what our outcomes are, the metrics that we've set. We share that with them. We talk through where our focus is, talk about our 4 priorities and how we continue to fund to that. We've tried in the 4 years to be super transparent about everything that we do. We're not required to produce those reports. We just do it because it's taxpayer dollars and we feel that they need to see the return on the investment they're making. So we'll do that. We'll have conversations with folks who want to have conversations. And I think the big thing for us is, my job is to take whatever we have and make sure that kids are still winning in Knox County. So our team is already, some of the modifications we made were changes to our staffing formula, which caused some reduction in positions. We capped those for this year, so we already know going into next year there will be additional cuts just by the way of changing the formulas. It's my job to kind of forecast ahead, and I think the message we're kind of getting is there's probably not going to be a surplus of dollars in the future. So we need to make sure we're preserving the things that we know over the 4 years have delivered the outcomes.
We're going to take a quick break on Inside Tennessee. We'll talk more about academic performance with Dr. Rysewyk right after this. We're back on Inside Tennessee with the leader of Knox County Schools. Almost 60,000 students in this district, the 3rd largest in the state. Dr. Rysewyk leads it. And we were talking about budget and money. Just for our viewers to understand how much of the county budget goes to schools, it's upwards of 68 or 70 cents of every dollar is spent on schools. So it's a key part of our budget. Overwhelmingly, the money goes to schools. What people want to see is proof of performance. Let's talk about some of the academic numbers you saw at the end of the year, and they won some national praise.
Yeah, I'll start off first by saying we have the best teachers, and that's what makes the difference. 4 years ago, that was our strategy we bet on. If you have, we can say anything we want, but it's who's in front of the students every day, the decisions they make every day with those students, the relationships they have with the families to make them grow. So our teachers have done an amazing job. Our principals have done an amazing job across 91 schools, and that was a strategy we bet on 4 years ago. So we've invested in our teachers, and the results have shown. So this is the 5th straight year that we've shown increased achievement. That's all. Sometimes we talk about growth, which is great, but increased achievement in all 4 subject areas: social studies, math, ELA, and then science. We haven't got our science numbers back for this year, but the 4 previous years that we anticipate that we could this year. So I think for us, it's typically been kind of a 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. We're a fairly high achieving district for our size. I think the 2 that stood out to me this year, 4 years in, we saw 3rd grade reading, which is a huge marker. Everyone knows that's kind of where we look to see when kids start to learn. We saw a 4.7 additional % increase in proficiency this year after, again, we've done it 4 previous years. 8th grade math is another one that's kind of the precursor to all the STEM jobs and the engineering and sciences. We saw a 4.5% increase again in that one, and that's after 4 years previously. So sometimes you'd think that would start leveling off, but it's not happening because our teachers are doing the right things.
So Dr. Rysewyk, first of all, I applaud you for the improvement that's happened. You've been here now going on your 5th year, starting your 5th year, and there have been dramatic increases. But I've had a number of people come up to me in the public who have said, and you look at, for example, in 2021, I think the math scores were somewhere close to 29% overall, K through 12, and now they're up to 42.6%. Likewise, in English or language arts, 33 to 46%, 34 to 46%. That's a great improvement, but if you're in academics and you get 40% on a test, you're deep in the fail. If you win 46% of your games as a head football coach at a Division I school, you're fired. And not to suggest you should be replaced because the improvement is remarkable, but what do you say to the public going, half of the product coming out of Knox County schools are not proficient in any of the important core skills?
I'm glad you asked that question because there is an explanation for that, and I'll say this first of all: we're never satisfied. So we're always going to continue to dig in. My team is very much how do we improve? What's continuous improvement? What can we do better? What can we simplify? What can we learn from research and get better at? But I think that's sometimes the misperception. Tennessee about 10 to 15 years ago went through a standards realignment. There was a lot of this proof in advertising back during the Bredesen years and when Haslam first came in as governor. And it was kind of the standards were pretty low. So we had very high proficiencies, but they weren't when you compared them across the rest of the country. Tennessee wasn't holding their end of the deal. So
this is the race to the top conversation that we've
10
had.
years, 15 years ago, right?
Correct. And so Governor Bredesen started that, and he and Governor Haslam handed that off very well, and we're both very serious. You know, I would credit both of them for what we're seeing in Tennessee now, why people want to be here, because they focused on having that happen, and that was a great thing. So I think the misconception is if a student isn't proficient, then they sometimes they can't read, right, or that sort of thing. Tennessee's standards are now some of the highest in the country. So you know, I remember going to second and third grade rooms and seeing that where proficiency was low, but kids reading. It's just that our standard for grade level in Tennessee is very high. So no excuses in that. We want to continue to grow that and are growing that, but I just don't want people to think that if they're not proficient, that means that, you know, they're going to drop out in high school.
So do we have, say, quarter metrics of what percentage of our student population may be under 25% in language arts?
We do.
What is that percentage overall K through 12?
Yeah, we monitor that to look to see. I would say the biggest thing I would say is there's the NAEP test, which is a national test that's done every 2 years. And we've seen Tennessee consistently increase where they rank against the other states. I think that's probably a good kind of apples to apples. Massachusetts is usually the state everyone's chasing. But we've seen Tennessee move into the top 30 and the top 20 in those. So for us, I think that raise in standards showed that we're competitive nationally and that our standards now rank with everyone else's. So we do track that school by school where students fall out, and we do different interventions. We have what's called a response to intervention, or RTI, that's required 30 minutes or 45 minutes based on where a student falls out in that ranking. We give them additional time on task, additional time to work on the standards, and I think that's some too, because our interventions have been aligned to the standards where we're seeing a lot of growth in those.
But again, to my question, do we know what percentage of our K through 12 students fall in that bottom 25%? And I'll just use language arts, because I think, frankly, as an employer in this town and looking for high school grads, often from the Knox County school system, you know, that's an important skill in my office. Yeah. And most folks have had some college to come to work there as staff. But what percentage of our students fall into that bottom 25% category?
I don't have that number. You know, I'd have to look at that for sure. But I will tell you the things that I've been very proud of in that is that we have seen growth in every subgroup. That's a big deal. When you talk about economically disadvantaged, when you talk about Black, Hispanic, Native American, when you talk about homeless, when you talk about special education, ELL students, we've seen growth in all of those. And for me, that was year two, when I saw that across the board, graduation rates jumped for all of those students. We've seen 4% graduation rate jumps over the last couple of years. But even more than that, it's not do you get across the stage, it's what have you done to be a ready graduate. For us, that means leaving with a plan. That means having taken a dual enrollment or an AP course. That means having an industry certification. So we've added additional metrics to what that means to be a graduate from Knox County, and we're seeing that across the board in all the fields. So I don't have that exact number for the percentage, but I do know that it's not just our top kids that are growing. We're growing everybody.
Another quick break on Inside Tennessee. John, Susan, we'll get to your questions right after this with Dr. Rysewyk. Back on Inside Tennessee with the Superintendent of Knox County Schools, John Rysewyk. Susan.
Yeah, I just want to ask about your teacher pay and all this budget. I know they were supposed to get an increase, so that's still happening. And then the state has just passed a bill that says you have to pay $50,000 to beginning teachers. How is that impacting your teachers that have been there longer, that maybe weren't making that much money?
Great question. So, you know, applaud what Governor Lee did with that to raise that $50,000 as a starting salary. Right thing to do. But really, for us, I'll go back to that was the low bar for us. You know, for us, 2 years ago, we did a market value study against 20 other districts, and then we ranked out all of our positions, our teachers, including everyone else, and we used some savings that we had and some cuts that we had to invest $44 million to get everybody to that level. We made a commitment then to do that again in 2028. So, you know, if you're trying to keep up with that cost of living, for us, that's meant trying to get to a 2.5% raise every year. So that gap, hopefully in 2028, is not super big. I'll give you an example. That's been a lot of work given to my team for that. Last year, it cost $22 million to give step raises and the rate increases. And even with our budget cuts late, we kept the raises. it was 22 million new debt. We got 17 million new dollars. So that means we had to find savings, $5 more million of savings to keep our promise to give the raises, and we did. Even in this budget cut, I think historically that's what we've done. We've grabbed the raises and said, well, that's just what what we're going to have. We've had under 10 vacancies out of 4,900 teachers for the last 2 years, and as of today, we have 27 going into next year. So
Because of the salaries?
yeah, it's a big part of it. I think
We
it's
used to see teachers go to Blount County or to
Right,
Anderson
right.
County because they get about 10K more.
Right.
And now I've had great conversations. We'll do our new teacher celebration next week, but it's a great chance to. I've talked to Oak Ridge teachers, Maryville teachers that have said we always wanted to be part of Knox County, but we couldn't afford it, and they're here now. So our ability to recruit in, our ability to grow people, our ability for them to learn from those veteran educators is a large part of why we're having our success. So that's why we continue to invest. In this last budget reduction, we held those because if we don't continue to hold market value, then we start losing people. And
Now
we're not
they
gonna
can
do
just
that.
afford to live here. It'll be all good. That's not your problem, though. So
I also wanted to ask about the reserve. You've talked about that.
Sure.
$71 million,
71
something
million.
like that.
Right.
I think that would shock people, but when you realize how small that is compared to a $713 million budget.
Yeah, so looking at that, there's a state law that requires 27 million. It's
That's
if we ever
1
got to
month,
that place,
right?
it was less
Not
than
even a
that.
month.
71 million gets us slightly over a month of what our payroll would be. So for us, the goal is to try to get to 2 months plus. Like that's kind of what the government standard would be. So we're happy with the 71. We use that when we have to for one-time purchases, but I think that was part of the explanation too. You can't put reoccurring costs. You're jeopardizing the future when you do that. So to the extent we can do one-time costs, we'll use it for that. But we also understand that we're 1 month away at any given time of being in that
It's
situation.
kind of frightening.
and is it budget surplus that increases that fund?
It is, and so whenever we have that left over, maybe a better sales tax year, then we'll take those monies and put them into that at the end. In recent years, we've had to use those to make textbook purchases and those kinds of things for one-time purchases. But again, we want to keep growing that, but we also want to make sure we're
Safe to
operating
say we won't see a deposit this year.
I don't think so.
This question is for the older viewers, and I'll put myself in that category as well. I want to talk about technology and Chromebooks. We started hearing this spring more parents saying, not so crazy about them anymore. Think there's an over-reliance, maybe overexposure, maybe not as much return on the investment in terms of learning. Curious about your opinion in regards to all that. I think there's conversation in the district right now about what to do maybe in regards to K through 5, but what about that? Have we sort of leaned too heavily on the Chromebook, the computer, if you will?
That's a great question too, and one we are looking at. One of my favorite sayings is we always reserve the right to get smarter. And I think this is one of those situations where, kind of the push in the whole country was to get to this one-to-one, have the technology. We've worked very hard to get to that level. And now you're right, there's research out there that we're willing to take a look at. We have a policy review meeting tomorrow. Our board will pass its initial policy on, so especially in some of the lower grades, some of the limitations to that. But we've committed to, we don't want to knee-jerk, right, just because there's something there. We've committed to create a committee. We'll start August. We'll send out applications for people who want to be part of that. It'll be educators. They're very important to be on it. It'll be parents who want to be on that too, to help give us information before we just make a move. It took 15, 20 years to get here. There's a lot of good in that too. Our virtual school across the country, they're not great. Ours is. We have seen our special ed kids in our virtual school outperform some of their peers in other schools. So there's a lot of positives. I've talked a lot with the state board and different people about that because our virtual school is an anomaly when it comes to that in the state. So, we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So we want to make sure that we're being intentional. I think our board has been smart on that too. We kind of caution them to say we've been working to have teachers to use these tools, and while they're on summer, away for the summer, we don't want to take all their tools away until we've had a chance to work with them too. So we're very committed to doing what's best for our students, but I think that's only going to happen if we have good conversations and look at the research.
Only a minute left. How influential will artificial intelligence be this school year on students and
You
staff?
just lined up both Susan and I's questions. So
Good, yeah. It's a great question. I think we've done a lot of stuff. Dr. Maroulis at UT, we've had a lot of conversations with him. I think everyone's trying to figure that out. I've been out to Cal Berkeley to go be part of an AI summit there to talk through some things. No one's got it figured out yet. We know it's coming. We know it's here. There's a lot of concerns around plagiarism and critical thinking skills and being creative. All all those are legitimate concerns. There's also can it make you better and give you, what teachers do sometimes? Can it give you, as you're writing your essay, some ideas, consider this? And so there's a lot of tools. I think all text and curriculum will have that moving forward, so we're going to, obviously have to continue to think about it. We haven't done a whole lot of that yet. We need to kind of train our staff in those things first to make sure that that's there, and make sure that we're not giving up critical thinking or creativity by that. So I think it'll be part of this technology committee we talked about. Screen time's part of that, but also where do we want to go with AI? I also say at the same time, I think we have to be thinking that way. We're looking at some innovative models that you could even launch a school that's got some AI components, but that would be by choice for people to go be part of that. And I think that's something that, we definitely need to have some choice for people to choose to.
Dr. Rysewyk, we appreciate the conversation. Best of luck in the new school year.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We hope you enjoyed your 15-minute summer.
Thank you.
Back with our talk around right after this. We are in the middle of early voting right now, and we're talking about the state and federal primary and then the general election and local races. We will see a new mayor in Knox County, and that's true for other cities and communities across East Tennessee. We'll also see commission and school board. What is standing out to you right now, Susan?
Well, all politics is local, as we know, and we do have county commission races and sorts of mayor's race between Bohawk and Betsy Henderson. I think Betsy will win that, but I do think the Democrats are energized. May see a surprise or two in the county commission races. School board races there, I think we probably have some safe seats there. But, the fun one is the governor's race.
It is. And Don, what are you watching?
Well, like Susan said, the local races, I think Bo is in this. I know he has had some missteps as he's gone along. I think he's recovered fairly well, certainly amongst my party, because some of us really questioned some of the things that have come out. But we've talked to him or heard what he said and feel better about it. I think the county commission races are going to be interesting and good for the Democrats. The vote totals right now in early voting for Democrats is really remarkable as it's been compared to other years. Now, Susan and I talk, Republicans tend to vote later.
They like to vote on election day.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean Democrats don't, but they tend to vote in greater percentages. I don't know that it'll be enough both for the Democrats, because there aren't as many of us in this county, to sway it, but it might be, because I think a lot of Republicans are staying home.
John, let's switch to the governor's race, in particular the Republican side, where we see Representative Monty Fritz and also Congressman John Rose and then Senator Blackburn. We have seen this race really kind of change and shift a bit in the last few weeks.
We've gone from a low burn to sort of an inferno these days, which has been kind of fun to watch all around. Obviously, Marsha Blackburn was the GOP leader for a really long time, and then things sort of shook up, and now we have a much tighter race. We were talking off camera. There's an internal poll from Rose's people that shows it's actually pretty tight.
Very tight.
Susan, how important is East Tennessee to Senator Blackburn? About 30 seconds
East
left.
Tennessee is critical to anyone that's going to win the governor. We used to say you had to have 100,000 vote majority coming across the mountains, and it's still, numbers are a little different now, but you still need to win East Tennessee.
She is spending election night, according to her campaign, here. How important is that?
Well, if she wins, it'll be a party. If she loses, Glenn Jacobs and Tim Burchett
Brief
will not
appearance
have
by
fun.
several.
It'd be kind of grim that night at
Yeah, it would be grim.
Crown
if she
Plaza.
loses, Knox County.
We have a number of ways for you to meet the candidates in the Know Before You Vote section of Inside Tennessee and WBIR.com. And also, we encourage you to check out a 15-year-old site. You can scan it and get there. But we also saw earlier this week a 15-year-old from Farragut develop his own site. You can find that story at WBIR.com. There's a look at his voter guide. I encourage you to check it out. He did a heck of a job. What's the gossip? You'll hear more of it next week right here on Inside Tennessee.